Welcome to new viewers. Welcome back to my ducklings that have been here before. I am the Loud Little Ducky. Today we are going to go over some Owens v. Echard updates, the new ruling from Judge Matta, go over some old emails, and look at some other things. I want to do this video before we go and look at Gingras' new blog, which will be the next video up, because I want to make sure that we have all of this other information prior to looking at the newest thing, so we have it fresh in our minds. So let's jump into that. Okay, so we are going to look at this email from Owens to Clayton, and it was sent on Monday, September 25th, 2023 at 9:26 p.m. Then there's also a 3:10, so it might be some time change thing. But anyways, it says, "Wow, saw the documents, the truth. You need to read this." It says, Clayton, "I was just able to obtain the circulating documents, and wow. If you believe that is the story, 2 pages from 2 cases, then you are not as smart as I thought you were." Okay. "I sent you proof of both pregnancies, which you can see at this Dropbox link. I didn't do this to anyone before. I was pregnant twice before. I am 33, and it is proven that I truly was. I have never had a paternity case before you." Now, she is technically not wrong there. She hasn't had a paternity case against any of these other past men. They have been other types of cases. Pregnancy was just a factor in these cases. And she says twice. But there's a person from 2014. And then if you look back at another video of mine, which I will link, it says that the history that she listed for pregnancy history for the mom doc, those pregnancy dates don't match the relationships and the guys that we know about. So whose babies were those? Or does she just not remember the years? They should be fresh in her mind for the mom doc, because that was one of the most recent doctor's visits she had been to, and she's had all these dates thrown in her face and the years multiple times, so I don't know why she would be forgetting the dates of those. So there's a bunch of pregnancy dates, and there's 3 previous men that we know of: Matt, Michael, and Greg, prior to Clayton. That's 3 pregnancies prior to Clayton pregnancy. So already lying. Case with Greg. I filed a civil case against him and forced to get an order of protection months later, not a paternity case. I don't know that Clayton said it was a paternity case. He just said you pulled this stunt more than once. Greg used this absolute BS story about fraud in his response to my initial complaint against him as a way to deflect attention away from the truth. It was a total lie. Here, the official email is what the attorney, Joe Cotchett, who is a good family friend, had to say about it. So here she states that Joe Cotchett was the attorney, but then later she says no, he wasn't. He was just a family friend. He was an attorney to my dad that knew about the story. I can give you 100% proof that that was in fact the email he sent if needed. I'm sure his office would confirm this for you. Says, Dear Laura, thank you for the note. It is an extraordinary story with Gillespie. I am glad you're pursuing charges as the conduct is outrageous. If we can help in any way, do not hesitate to call. Best regards, Joe. Uncle Jojo. All right. You are welcome to talk to my doctor at One Medical who confirmed the pregnancy, Dr. John Jones. See the diagnosis here. It was even confirmed via video chat. And the nurse practitioner was so nervous for my safety based on Greg's reactions that she asked him to leave at the end to see if I felt safe. I explained before that's not necessarily new. They will a lot of times talk to you without sometimes your husband or your baby daddy or whoever to ask you those questions about, do you feel safe in your home? Do you feel like you're going to hurt yourself or anybody else? Do you feel like anybody else is going to hurt you? They want you to answer those questions by yourself so that you don't have any pressure if there was to be pressure. So that's just something they do. They ask you this every time you go to the hospital. I was just asked these questions the other day. The attorney who wrote the document you were circulating dropped Greg as a client because he wasn't telling the truth. See his motion to withdraw, which was granted. If anybody has that motion to withdraw, please link it to me, because I would love to see the motion to withdraw. And if it states Greg is a liar, that's why I don't want to represent him anymore, because I doubt that's what it says. Even if that's why he dropped it, I'm pretty sure it doesn't say that. Case with Mike. This was only a restraining order case. So she had an order of protection case with Gillespie. Now she has a restraining order case against Mike. So obviously did not ask for money. Mike started stalking me after we broke up. The pregnancy occurred in 2016, so 2 years prior to me getting the Klutz order, the strongest DV order they gave out, not a paternity case. That's the one thing she is true. She hasn't done a paternity case. She decided a different case this time. Says you are referencing 2 pages of the 220-page file that makes up our DV case. In particular, you are showing one of only 2 declarations in support of Mike, and the one you are circulating is from his now brother-in-law, Colin Scanlon. The other one was from his sister, Stephanie Maraschini. We have gone over those declarations in the Maraschini breakdown, which has 3 parts, I believe. If you want to go and read those, they are in a separate playlist, but I also do have them linked in this the playlist covering The Bachelor as well. The judge ordered for both to be excluded from the evidence. They were total hearsay, just false statements and a failed effort to get Mike off the hook for what he did to me. So then shouldn't your mother's statements and such for you and Janice, I believe, or Janet, shouldn't those be hearsay as well? And the stranger on a plane, if they were hearsay. So she can't, well, those statements didn't need to come in because they were hearsay. And it's just false deposition and was caught. Where was it caught during the deposition of these people? I really want to see where they were caught lying in the deposition. This now former attorney called mine and said, normally there's his side, her side, and the truth, which is in the middle. That is not the case here. Mike agreed to the restraining order before it was even heard by the court on advice of that lawyer. Well, I don't know if Mike had the best lawyer. If Randy Sue Pollock told Maraschini just agree to the restraining order, I don't know if that was the best advice. I think he should have probably fought for it, or he was like, you know what, no, whatever. And if Pollock didn't explain to Maraschini what this could do to his image, his background checks, and everything else by agreeing to the restraining order, because he didn't want to fight it or didn't have the money to or whatever, or bad advice from a lawyer, that is ineffective assistance of counsel. Like, he should know all the pros and cons of accepting a restraining order. But I can see where Maraschini would be like, you know what, whatever. She wants a restraining order. That means she's going to leave me alone and everything too. Then great, whatever. I just want her out of my life. It's probably what he was thinking. But I wonder if Maraschini was explained how bad it would actually affect his future, because it's on his background. It follows him. And that she just gets to renew it and renew it and renew it however often she wants. It says here are 18 pages showing that the order was granted in 2018 and again in 2022. Take a look at the declaration of one of my friends, Joan. So, sorry I said Janice or Janet. It was Joan. Joan. So why is Joan's statement not hearsay and false statements? This is your word against everybody else's. And from the stranger on the plane, Karen, whatever. It's so that's still, they're both hearsay, but they're also like firsthand witnesses to whatever. But a lot of Jones seem like it was, oh, she told me this, she told me that, all this other stuff. The one on the plane, I'm going to believe the stranger on the plane. I don't think she has any reason to lie. I do think that Owens got under Maraschini's skin, and Maraschini went off on Owens in a public area. He shouldn't have done that because it can bite you in the butt. You need to be aware of your words and your behavior anywhere, in public especially. But I wonder what Karen thinks now, if she has seen all of this other stuff and what this woman has done. She's like, oh my gosh, I stood up for a woman who I really thought was in a dangerous situation, which she did the right thing. Karen, the stranger on the plane, did the right thing. But if she was like, I didn't know that all this other stuff was happening. Because she just saw one incident, one little snippet in 10 years of this woman's behavior. She says, I never denied that I was pregnant because I was, as you can see in evidence from the Dropbox folder. However, Mike didn't force me to have an abortion. He and I handled the situation like mature adults, hence why it was not an issue whatsoever, and why I got a restraining order against him. So yeah, the pregnancy was not the reason for the restraining order or anything like that. But she did talk about in her declaration that she was pissed because he wanted her to get over it. She should have been over it by now, and like all this stuff, and she, tried to guilt him into feeling bad for her, and she gave up this so that they could have a future and have a baby at the right time in their relationship instead of this wrong time. She told her parents, he wasn't being supportive like she thought he should be, all of the stuff that she went in circles with in the Gillespie case. She still pulled those same tricks and smack talked him about the whole thing. So the fact that she's saying, oh, he didn't force me to have one, he handled the situation, or we handled the situation like mature adults, well, that's not what you were saying in your declaration when you were describing that period of your life. She goes on to say, Clayton, you were sent documents completely out of context by a man who has a vengeance against me. Like I've said, he is a dangerous man with assault allegations by other women. I am obviously angry with you, but you are a much, much better person than either of these men were. Please don't sink to their levels and believe them when I can and have disproved everything. But have you? Because thus far, nobody has seen the disproving Maraschini and Gillespie's stuff in the pregnancy part. Now, I don't know about the other stuff, but at least in the pregnancy part, you have not disproved anything. Now that you have been informed of the truth and seen everything in context, you will need to retract the statements you made about these nearly identical cases, as that is pure defamation. You are encouraging people to spread knowingly false information about me. But what have you been doing? Going to Page 6, going to The Sun, reaching out to all of these entertainment tip lines. You did it to encourage people to spread false information about Clayton and defame Clayton. So you can do it, but he can't. Okay. It says, please let me know if you have questions. I am happy to provide any further proof you need. All the best. And then her crappy advertisement signature stuff she has on all her emails. Okay, so now we have this other one. I don't have the date on this, but this one is to Clayton. It says pregnancy confirmation via ultrasound and next steps. Good morning. I wanted to give an update on where things stand, as I have not heard back from Clayton and presumed he has blocked me, which he told me before he does when he doesn't want to deal with the situation. Well, I wouldn't want to deal with you either. If only I had the opportunity to do the same, but obviously my body isn't allowing me to forget that I am pregnant. Rather than continuing to send him several emails a day. Girl, that was more than several emails a day. That was even more than a plethora, if you can have more than a plethora. 500 some odd emails in a short time period. Like, that's more than a several. You're downplaying that. I hope that we can meet in person to discuss what is going on because, as Clayton said last week, I feel we need to have a face-to-face discussion. It's too easy to get upset via text. But in person, conversations are more caring and cordial. I believe this is exactly what we need, as texting hasn't been working well, and we should have been talking in person for most of this anyways. Texting isn't meant for meaningful, impactful, life-changing conversations, and I've known and learned that plenty of times. Yeah, 'cause you've done this more than plenty of times. I told Clayton last week that I was going to be in California for the weekend, and that if I was going to get the abortion pills, I would much easier to do there in California for many reasons, and less traumatic because there isn't a law there like there is in Arizona. The mother has to view the ultrasound. So apparently in California you don't have to look at the ultrasound, where in Arizona they make you look at the baby before deciding you want to give it up or get rid of it. He has told me that he wants me to take the pills, but understands that his preference for me doing so because I would impact his ability to date other women in the future is not enough reason for me to end human life. I am attaching a screenshot of my chart after my visit on Sunday to Planned Parenthood in Orange County, which confirms that I had an ultrasound that was consistent with the conception date of 5/20 when I was with Clayton. And like I've said, he's the only person I've been with since March 2022. There was a gestational sac, meaning a viable pregnancy, and that I refused to view the ultrasound and take the abortion pills at the clinic. They don't typically allow you to take them home, but since I live out of state and was as conflicted as I was, they allowed me to. Okay, so they bent all protocols for you to take these abortion pills outside of Planned Parenthood. Because I'm pretty sure if that is their way to do things, they're going to have you take them there and not have you leave the facility with them. Probably because of certain laws, and they don't want people coming in and getting them and then selling them to people who may actually need them or want them, because, abortion has, a lot of states have made it to where you can't get abortions after a certain time period. Don't want to get into that political thing. To each their own on that. I have my own opinions. But they were willing to let her take these pills with her. And conception date, they don't go off the day of intercourse. They just don't. Like, you should have learned more in your 10 years of doing this. And, the only person I've been with since March of 2022. And my thing is after watching the Tilted Lawyers thing, and he read that email about her talking about how tight everything is, and if he would just be intimate with her, he would know how tight she was and that she hadn't been with anybody. Why would you need him to be intimate with you again for him to know how tight you were, to judge that you hadn't been with anybody else if he's already been inside you? Wouldn't he already know that? He wouldn't have to do it again. But you were like, if you just were inside me, you would know. But according to you, he's already been there, so shouldn't he already know? It doesn't make sense. Like, you're not going to say that to somebody that has already been there. Been there, done that. He doesn't need to know again. But he wasn't, and he hasn't. So you needed to invite him to come inside. Okay, that was a poor choice of words. Like, I was trying to... Never mind. Moving on. So it says, now that we know we have a viable pregnancy, things seem all the more urgent. I'll continue to say until I'm blue in the face that Clayton is the father and that there is 0% chance that it is anyone else's. I told him that he needs to pay for the prenatal paternity test because it is not providing me with any information that I don't know, but that I will gladly reimburse him for the full amount if I am wrong. He agreed to that. I am eager to get it done and have contacted multiple companies about the timing of it. The consensus is that while it can be performed at 7 weeks, there is a chance that there is not enough fetal DNA at that point, in which case you would have to do a repeat. You'll repeat the test at $1,500. It seems like we would be safest doing it at the 8 weeks, although ArcPoint Labs based in Scottsdale said 12 weeks was their minimum. The results will come back in 7 to 10 business days. Well, they didn't end up going with ArcPoint. She goes on to say, it was explained to me at Planned Parenthood that medication abortions are most successful early on in the pregnancy, and that as the weeks go on, they become less effective. By the time the results are back from the prenatal paternity test, I would need to do a surgical abortion, which I will not do under any circumstances. Why is she so opposed to surgical abortions as opposed to pill? Because if you're wanting to abort the baby, you're wanting to abort the baby. Is it because she can get the pills and say she got the pills, whether she did or not, and she can lie about them? And if she tries to go in for a surgical abortion and they're going to be like, ma'am, there's nothing here to abort during a surgery, is that why she won't do that under any circumstances? Why is she so opposed to surgical abortion as opposed to just the pills? Like, are there people that believe that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, if you're for abortion or you're willing to do it, is there logic behind being okay with one way but not another way? So I don't get that. I only mention this because once the prenatal paternity test is taken, it's a done deal that I'm having the child, and there will not be an option for abortion once the results come back. My preference has been to have the baby all along, so that's obviously not an issue for me, but it is for Clayton. He needs to know that. I haven't lied about one thing so far, despite his doubts, which we now know is a lie. She has lied about many a things. She's even admitted to lying about things. He himself had me take a pregnancy test, which turned out positive, and now a doctor has confirmed that the pregnancy on the ultrasound and said it was the very small size it should be based on the date. I was intimate with him. No, a doctor would not say that. They would say via your last menstrual cycle. If he doesn't trust me, that's fine. I am more than happy to prove him wrong again. Again? When did you prove him right the first time? You have to have a first time before you can have an again. I just know how high the stakes are right now and want to be clear that it's really is the last time that I would consider an abortion. The last thing I would want if I were Clayton's position is to feel like I didn't have an opinion on something so important. But it seems like his reaction to the stakes getting higher is to withdraw even further. However, there are several factors at play that he needs to consider regarding my health and its impact on the baby if we decide to carry it to term. First of all, my stress levels have major impact on the fetus's development in the womb, and not having an emotional support from Clayton like he promised has been extremely difficult for me. Most importantly, though, my neurologist has emphasized that I need to change my dose of epilepsy medication significantly because I am at a higher risk of a seizure during pregnancy, and having one could have terrible impact on the baby. I've delayed going up on it because I haven't known what we are doing, but I really need to make a decision. I don't think that either Clayton or I could forgive ourselves if the child ends up having a lifelong condition that could have been preventable. You are not concerned about this baby's well-being. You're not concerned that Clayton is going to hurt you and your unborn children. You're not concerned about a seizure affecting your unborn child or an abortion pill affecting your unborn child. You are not worried about it. And you know how I know you're not worried about it? Because you didn't seek regular prenatal care during a pregnancy. If you have all this and you're so worried about the health of that baby, you would have seen a doctor the entire time, and you didn't. So you can go somewhere else with your bullshit lies, because it is infuriating to sit here and say, oh, you cared. No, you didn't. You could give two shits about any of these babies that you so-called were pregnant with. And I really feel for one, that if you actually do get pregnant, but once you actually do get pregnant in real life, my guess is you're actually going to go seek prenatal care. But you didn't because there were no babies to get prenatal care for. But don't give me this BS that you are so worried about this little fetus, because you're not. Owens continues to ramble. On a personal level, I wanted to share that a big reason I am against terminating the pregnancy is because of the impact of not having an abortion had on my family. My great-grandma was 14 when she gave birth to my grandma, who she gave up for adoption. If she had had an abortion, I wouldn't be here. It's impossible for me to think about terminating the pregnancy without thinking of that, even though in many ways not having the baby would be an easier option. Well, now you want to think about your great-grandma and your grandma? Did you think about them with Matt? Did you think about him with Maraschini? Did you think about her and them with Gillespie? No. It's not a huge impact on you because you're willing to do it and have this conversation and throw babies away for the sake of somebody just to be with you. So stop trying to get sympathy points about your great grandma and your grandma, who I'm sure are lovely people. And yeah, that is a thing. If somebody would have aborted somebody, then, we wouldn't be here. But you don't take that seriously because you are willing to do it in every relationship you've been with. She said, I'm also getting feedback from my sister whose baby was born a month early on May 24th and who says that it is the greatest thing she's ever experienced, but that it is also the hardest, and she can't imagine how she could ever do it without a partner. Well, that is your sister. And maybe you should keep your legs closed and use protection if you can't imagine having a baby without a partner. Like, wait until you're married, wait till you got a ring on your finger, something. And keep your legs closed until then. There's a good way to avoid all of this. But no, you're going to weaponize sex and things like that against a man. On the other hand, my mom has been my main source of support on this and has asked me to think about what I would regret more when I am 90 years old on my deathbed, having had an abortion or having had the child. Did she say this? Has she said this to you in every single relationship that you've been pregnant with twins? Like, does she want you to think about, you're going to be on your deathbed when you're 90 and be like, remember all the babies that you aborted that would have actually been here by your side on your deathbed? But since you ran all the men off and aborted all the babies, you are alone at your deathbed. Like, really, is that the discussion y'all are having? When I think of it that way, the idea of giving up the child feels implausible, even though Clayton has told me many times that he would not want any custody nor to have anything to do with him or her. I imagine that would change at some point once he saw the baby. I would absolutely expect him to share custody and parenting time with me. And I can get where some people would think that. Sometimes with guys, they don't want to do it. But guys, even if you don't want anything to do with baby mama, be there for the child, because the child didn't do anything and it is a part of you. Just think about that. That's the mama in me speaking to men and boys and stuff later in life. Also, if you don't want pregnancies and babies with certain people, then you should restrain from having sex. Yes, I am going to give the abstinence discussion because everybody is just so willy-nilly with their willy-nilly. It's just something everybody does now, and it's becoming less meaningful. Sex is supposed to be meaningful, and it's become something that's just not to a lot of people. Says, I apologize for yet another email. Girl, you probably sent 20 more thousand long-winded emails after this. But I feel really helpless in terms of communicating with Clayton, and as the father of the child, he is the only person whose support and input really matters to me. Obviously, having a child would completely change the course of our lives, and I want to figure out what we are doing together. I know that many women would make their own decision without regard for the baby's father's opinion, but that's not me, and I need him to understand that. Now, I would give her points if there was an actual baby, because that is nice that if a girl is willing to, talk to the guy and stuff like that, and if they come to a mutual decision, and then there's some that are like, oh yeah, I was pregnant with your kid like 5 years ago, but like I didn't want the baby, so I just aborted it and didn't tell you about it. Like, that's sadly unfair, but it is, it's women's bodies, our choice type thing, and sadly men don't really have rights to a baby, until the baby is physically here. Which stinks for guys, because some guys are like, have the baby and I will take it. Like, you don't have to have anything to do with it, but please don't abort it. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to be pregnant. I want my hot summer bod. But I mean, somebody doing that, it is nice. Not everybody does that. That is not why she was doing this. She was using this to manipulate, in my opinion. But, you know, I think more people should consider the guy's feelings, because sadly they just don't get a say until the baby is not attached to the mother anymore. Let's see. And that's not me. I need him to understand that I really care about Clayton's feelings, but can't take them into consideration if he is treating me like this. If we are going forward with it, that's great, and I want to be able to get excited about it, but right now it feels like there's tension in the air about what is happening, and the silence is deafening. If there's anything you can do to talk to him, I would greatly appreciate this. This may be the email to Clayton's dad or parents, which Clayton did not give her that email address, so Owens went and found it herself, which is creepy, stalkerish behavior, like she did with Maraschini in looking up the girlfriend he had at the time after he was with her. She will find you. She is lurking in the shadows. Okay, I am going to attempt to timestamp these things, so that if you just want to go to certain parts and not watch the whole video, you can. But here we have Judge Matta's ruling. And this is Superior Court of Arizona, Maricopa County, 5/28/2024. And order entered by the court. So the court reviewed and considered petitioner's motion for judgment on the pleadings and renewed motion to dismiss filed on May 10th, 2024. Respondent's response / objection to petitioner's motion for judgment on the pleadings and renewed motion to dismiss filed on May 15th, 2024, and petitioner's reply in support of petitioner's motion for judgment on the pleadings and renewed motion to dismiss filed May 22nd, 2024. So 3 different motions that she is ruling on here, after the one she already put out last week or the week before. The petitioner filed the motion under the belief that the court had yet to rule on the respondent's prior motion for sanctions against petitioner. Formally, the respondent withdrew the motion, which was subsequently accepted by the court. However, due to the clerical error, the acceptance was not remitted to the parties, thereby leading to the instant motion. The substance of petitioner's argument is that Rule 26 is the only valid basis under which the respondent and court could bring sanctions against the petitioner. And since the court cannot convert the motion for sanctions into its own motion for sanctions, there is nothing left to be decided in the case. Therefore, the court should grant the motion for judgment on the pleadings. The petitioner also asserts that any additional motion for sanctions by the respondent will be untimely. So that is her summary of what Owens has said. The respondent asserts that there are rule and sanctuary bases independent of Rule 26 that would allow the court to order sanctions against the petitioner. These bases include 1. ARS 25-324, sanctions for unreasonable conduct. 2. ARS 25-415, sanctions for presenting false claims or violating orders compelling discovery in family law actions. 3. ARS 25-809G, attorney's fees for unreasonable positions in paternity proceedings. The respondent further asserts that if the sanctions were precluded under Rule 26, that the parties would still be going to trial to litigate the issues of non-paternity and attorney's fees and cost. It is important to note that in Exhibit 3 of the response, an email from Mr. Maraschini to counsel for the petitioner, Mr. Maraschini claims that he was willing to talk to counsel for the petitioner as required by a witness subpoena. However, Mr. Maraschini saw that the counsel for petitioner had posted a photograph of him and the petitioner with accompanying audio from a radio show they did together years ago. Mr. Maraschini refused to speak with counsel for the petitioner. Mr. Maraschini maintains that such an action was inappropriate, offensive, and tantamount to accusing Mr. Maraschini of fabricating evidence and lying. It is also important to note that in Exhibit 4 of the response, an email from counsel for the respondent to the counsel petition counsel for the respondent includes a significant description of the substance of the testimony of each of the 3 subpoena witnesses. This description appears both the body of the email as well as the attachment, which is not included in the exhibit. This belies the claims made by counsel for petitioner that respondent had not properly disclosed the substance of the testimony that would be provided by Matt, Maraschini, and Gillespie. While Exhibit 4 appears in the response of the petitioner's motion for judgment on the pleadings, it is irrelevant to the motion in limine already ruled on, and demonstrates the respondents timely disclosed the identities of the witnesses as well as the substance of their testimony. So that is basically the summary of what Clayton's people said. Petitioner replies, contends that respondent's failure to comply with Rule 26 is undisputed and precludes alternate relief. Petitioner asserts that the court retains no sanctionable issues to decide. Petitioner advised she will agree the issue is moot if the respondent will stipulate that the court cannot sanction petitioner sua sponte. Petitioner further asserts that the court cannot award sanctions by hypothetical grounds, but that even if it could, the request was untimely. As previously stated, the court finds that motion, response, and reply were filed with the belief that the court had not accepted the respondent's motion to withdraw upon knowledge of the clerical error. The ruling was filed rendering the motion moot. Let the record reflect the court declines to take further action. So it made its rulings last week. They didn't know because it wasn't entered due to clerical error. So that's why these other motions were put in. But like her ruling from last week or the week before is standing. And she's not going to take any further action on these. She already said what she needed to say in her last ruling. And that was to deny all these things, and we will be going forth with trial on June 10th. And we're going to be ending with these videos with these I took from Dave Neal. This one here on the left is the one that she photoshopped and that Gingras has admitted that she photoshopped and sent to Dave Neal or Reality Steve. And then this 102 one is the actual one. And these were quantitative. Quantity has the numbers of the HCG. So this one is the fake one that she altered. This is the real one that basically shows her numbers are not high enough to actually be pregnant. In the Echard case. These are also from Dave Neal. The real image is over here on the right, the 2015 image that was on Google. And then the fake one is the one from August 6, 2021 in the Gillespie case. So those are the things that we have here. And she added a bunch of stuff. And it's just not real. I don't care how out of her mind she was. If she is this crazy, she needs to be inpatient. But that is all that I have for you, and I will see you in the next one, which is going to be going over Gingras's blog and seeing what Owens now has to say. And y'all know how I feel about Owens' declarations of words. I would like to use them as toilet paper, basically. I will see you next time.